Okay, so first of all, here's a close-up of all of our signs, because I think they're slaying. You can't see them from the other direction. Okay, hi. Welcome back to Unfinished Basement Supernatural Recaps. We have done some revamping of the images, because my printer clearly doesn't work. So we've done some cursed drawings. So first of all, we have the man. And honestly, a pretty good drawing of his silhouette, I would say. So he's in hell, in case we forgot. Next, also with him in hell is John, and I intentionally tried to choose an unflattering image of him because I hate him. This is John. He's giving almost Nicolas Cage, and I'm sorry to Nicolas Cage for that, but this is John. And John is also in hell. In hell as well is Dean. Here we go. Here's Dean. Another cursed image. Sorry, Jensen. Next in I Personally Despise You and Bro Just Communicate, we have Sam. In You Didn't Stand Out to Me. Now listen, I made a choice, okay? I made a choice, but I feel that this is the most accurate representation because this is how we see her, okay? For like pretty much most of the series, I believe. This is Mary. This is Mary on the ceiling, on fire. And then in our Slay Diva category, we have Rest and Slay Jess in her nurse's costume. Now, I'm sorry. I told you these are all cursed images, okay? This is Jess in her nurse's outfit. We're on to episode 2. Let's get the notes out. We gotta get the notes out. Episode 2. We have, fun fact, Corey from Glee. I don't know his last name. I also wasn't allowed to watch Glee growing up. Corey. He has a cameo in this episode. He's only in it for maybe like 2 minutes, but he was there. They arrive at the coordinates that John, remember, cryptic John sending cryptic coordinates to his children instead of like communicating with them. At those coordinates, there are hikers that have disappeared every 23 years. Suspicious. What could it be? We know that it's fast. We know that it's strong. We know that it comes out at night and that it can unlock doors. So it can't be a bear. That is actually a conversation that they have. Anyways, Sam has nightmares about Jess. R.I.P. They're trying to find John so that they can. Sam's goal is to find Jess's killer and also Mary's killer because it's the same killer. And to do that, they want to find John, who is hunting that thing. Okay, so we got it. We got the train. So Sam and Dean trying to find John because John is trying to find the killer that killed both Mary and Jess. John doesn't know about Jess. Okay, so we've got layers. But anyway, it turns out it's a Wendigo. Has claws and mimics humans. We find out in this episode that they like are basing the supernatural creatures on like folklore from around the world, which is pretty cool. We like that it's inclusive of not just Western white cultures. Not the show isn't problematic, it definitely is. It is pretty much all white characters, although a black man does get killed at the beginning of this episode, so representation. Anyway, then Sam and Dean have a conversation where Dean's like, "Are you okay?" And Sam's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And Dean's like, "You're not fine." This conversation that I just summed up, that is going to happen so many times, okay? So just prepare yourself. They both, listen, we're gonna give Dean a chance because this is a new episode, right? We're gonna put them both at Bro Just Communicate because discuss your feelings. Discuss the feelings. Oh my gosh. So many issues would be solved if they just Dean thinks that John wants them to keep hunting. Sam, you want to know what Sam says? Sam says, why doesn't he just call? And for that comment, slay diva Sam. Because why doesn't he just call? Exactly. And this is a thing that Supernatural does really well. They point out their own plot holes and address them, which is nice, which is honestly great. Anytime I'm like, bro, that's so stupid, or that doesn't make any sense, they're usually on it. Because I'm like sitting here, John, why don't you just call, right? Why don't we use the phone? Also, we learned that Sam is really just solely driven by revenge over Jess. Well, listen, I'm a pro revenge girl. Like, do what you gotta do. But you gotta find your new dream after the revenge. Like, it's giving Tangled. You have to find your new dream. It can't just be the revenge. There has to be another dream to keep you going after. So anyways, the Wendigo. How does it come about? How is it formed? We don't always get that answer, by the way. That's kind of a beginning of this series thing. So it starts as a man who then, probably due to like some survival situation, starts to engage in cannibalism. And then if you eat enough human meat, you become a Wendigo. And you get all these like superpowers, basically. and you know what? It's a good story. I don't know though. Would it really prevent people from engaging in cannibalism if you're like, you get all these powers? Like, this Wendigo is pretty powerful. So I don't know. Maybe it's more of an incentive to engage in cannibalism. Also, just on the topic of cannibalism, the story of the guys that engaged in consensual cannibalism in Europe, I believe. I don't remember where. That's an interesting story, and you should look that up. It really makes you think about what is cannibalism and what are laws, and just like, bro, it's such an interesting story. Anyway, the Wendigo stores victims to last for years, which is why, he only comes out every 23 years. They burn it, and that's how they kill it. It's bad CGI, okay? But it's giving tall Gollum, like, and it is scary. It's bad CGI, but it's scary. I was watching this in the dark, and the dog that lives here showed up. It's like a small bulldog, and I saw it, and I was like, I jumped because this show was scaring me. I've already seen this episode. Anyway, so bad CGI, but still scary. But this episode also establishes that, like, the supernatural is not a secret. So the people that they save from the Wendigo, they just end the episode with knowing about the supernatural and that it exists and what Dean and Sam do. And there's no, like, attempt to brainwash. There's no attempt to, like, lie to them. Like, they just know now. So it's not like, Wizards of Waverly Place where they can't know and it's against the rules and, they have to keep it a secret at all costs. It's more like we don't tell everybody because they probably won't believe us, and, we don't want people to, like, have to know if they don't have to know because it's scary. But, like, people who find out, they find out. Don't worry, there will be lots of secrets kept throughout the show, but not this. So that's the end of episode 2. Not really any huge plot development for our main story of the fire ceiling killer and this man. But it does kind of establish the show as almost like a crime procedural show where it's like, okay, there's a criminal, a supernatural thing, and somebody's committing these crimes. Let's figure out what it is, and figure out how to catch it, and then they catch it. And I love a procedural show, even though I hate cops. And this is a great way to not have cops and still have a procedural show. So I was hooked. I was like, You Got Me. I love a procedural. But we really didn't have any major plot development. You could honestly skip this episode and you wouldn't be missing anything. But it's a fun episode. It's a good watch. I would rank it at Slay Diva. Episode 3. These are just like not super consequential episodes. We're gonna go through them kind of fast. This is also a really good episode. We have 3 drownings with no bodies. They've what's it called? Dragged? That can't be it. That can't be the term. Dragged? Drug? They took a net through the lake and there were no bodies, okay? We have a witness. There's only one witness that has survived, and it's a child, and he is nonverbal as a result of the trauma. He watched his dad drown. He communicates with Dean through art in this episode, and we love this episode for nonverbal representation and demonstrating different ways that nonverbal people can communicate. Dean in this episode is really taking time to like communicate with this kid in a way that he can and really connect with him over shared trauma. So for that, Dean, you're gonna be Slay Diva. Look at Dean moving up the ranks. And I don't think he's sexist at all in this episode, so that's progress. Then people in the town start drowning through like sinks, because they find out anywhere the water can go, this monster or whatever can go. They figure out it's all related to these 2 men in the town. All of the people that have died are people these men care about. Ooh, suspicious. Why? In trying to talk to the child, Dean shares about the trauma of watching his mom, R.I.P. Mary, die, burn on the ceiling. And he talks about how like it impacted him. Dean, you know what? You're gonna get our first perfect angel. Sharing, discussing your feelings, your trauma, connecting with a child, being real, being raw. Anyway, the kid draws places where bad things are going to happen. We find out that the kid basically has this like psychic connection to the monster as a result of the trauma he endured. The 2 men whose loved ones are all being murdered, they killed a child, and that child is getting revenge by taking everyone they care about. Revenge. And honestly, that the child, the dead child, is not a recurring character, so it doesn't get a cursed drawing, but if it did, Slay Diva. Because, yeah, take revenge, bro. Eventually, the child kills both of the murderers, and the nonverbal kid is able to make a full recovery. Obviously, who was that? Oh, hell. We would have loved, like, nonverbal representation that... Okay, we're gonna leave hell down there. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole episode. Episode 3. There is no furthering of the main plot in this episode at all. So just like another procedural episode of figuring out who's committing the crimes and apprehending them, which they don't even do. The kid just gets its revenge and then gets to leave. So what did Dean and Sam... Really, they haven't done much. Hi, it's time for episode 4. Okay, now episode 4, we're really getting into some plot development, some character development, some important stuff to the main story. I wrote down, it feels like a different show watching season 1 again from where I'm at in season 7. Watching for the first time. Anyway, it feels like a different show. But this is going to be an episode where we get a lot of really important information that will be used to build on this is where we're really gonna get into it. Okay, so in this episode, we start with, there's a nervous flyer. Oh, he's scared of getting on the plane. Black dust. It kind of looks like a bunch of like fleas. They enter his body. This man, once he's on the plane, is able to open the emergency door while the plane's in the air. Crash the plane. Like, what is this? What are these fleas doing? That's what I was thinking. I was like, what's up with the fleas? What's up with the fleas? Listen, they are going to change the way this looks later on in the series. And as they should, because it's not fleas. And it's looking like fleas. So just know it gets better. Because it's not fleas. It's not like a bunch of little somethings. It's one big thing. They certainly didn't animate it to look like one big thing. It certainly looks like a bunch of little somethings. But anyway, so the fleas, that's what we're going to call them because that's what I knew at the time when I watched this. The fleas enter the man, and then he crashes the plane once he's on the plane after it's been 40 minutes in the air. What's up with the guy? What's up with the 40 minutes? How was he able to open the emergency door? Why did he do it? Also, his eyes turned black. Yeah, his eyes turned black. Why did his eyes turn black? Why did the fleas do that? You know, there are a lot of questions. Sam isn't sleeping because of the Jess nightmares. Sam, is that, and Dean's like, hey, bro, you're not sleeping. Sam's like, it's fine. Bro, Sam, this is where you're going. Communicate. Communicate is not fine, actually. It's actually not fine to not sleep. Actually, and Dean's like, you have to keep me alive, so I'm gonna be concerned about your sleep. And correct, Dean. Correct, Dean. You get to stay a perfect angel for the moment. Because communication. Talk about your feelings. Oh my gosh. Like, this should also just say talk about your feelings. Because what are we doing? Like, the toxic masculinity. Oh my gosh. Anyway, Jerry calls. Who's Jerry? Great question. Let me tell you, he's not important enough to get a cursed drawing. So, Jerry calls Dean. We learn that Dean and John, who's in hell. Oh, also the man has fallen. I don't know what happened to the man. And honestly, that's a good metaphor. So we're just gonna leave him down behind this couch in the basement. And that's what he deserves. Anyway, Dean and John previously helped Jerry with the poltergeist and is like, hey, I need your help with this situation. Can you come? And it's nice that there's like a big network of people who are aware of this, that we're not like, just these two guys know about this. Anyway, so Jerry works with planes. Jerry's not that important, okay? Oh, this is a drawing also I did. Anyway. Jerry's not that important. And he did something with planes. Anyways, he was friends with the pilot of the plane that crashed. Jerry is talking to Dean and Sam, and he says, John talks a lot about Sam and about how proud he is of Sam. Sorry, the John that told Sam to stay gone if he went to college, this John, like, that makes you even worse. To be like, oh, then you're just trying to look like the good guy. It's a very narcissist, like, very, like, oh, I still love him, and that makes me a good person, even though, you know, he left and doesn't talk to me anymore. Because you made him leave and not talk to you anymore. You're the reason. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I hate John. If it wasn't clear, I'm John's #1 hater. I honestly, because I have been trying to avoid spoilers, I don't know that much about the fandom, and I don't know if, like, people agree with me on the John front. But they should. And if they don't, I don't care. I'm gonna be John's #1 hater. Forever. Because this is like, and I think they're trying to be like, oh, it's cute. No. No, I see through. I see through. I know a narcissist, and John is a narcissist. So they get the plane, the black box in the plane, you know. You know what I'm talking about. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, it has a creepy scream that's like, I wrote down in my notes, woo-ah. But it's, to try to remember what it sounds like. I think it was like that. And I feel like if you go back and watch the episode, I feel like that's going to be a very accurate, I feel like that's going to be exactly the sound. Which turns out is EVP. And the EVP, when you translate the it says no survivors. But they're like, but what do you mean? There were 7 survivors of this plane crash. Ooh, what does it mean? We have so many questions right now. They find a survivor that checked himself into a mental hospital after the plane crash. He said he watched the man who got infested with the fleas open the door, and he says that man had black eyes and was super strong because he was able to open the door while the plane's in the air. So they decide to cosplay as Homeland Security to get into the remaining plane pieces. Which is a bold move. I'll give them that. Anyways, blah blah blah. They go look at the plane parts. The pilot who was flying the other plane, who's the pilot that's friends with Jerry. Okay, the plane that crashed, he survived. I went and got ice cream. It's really good. Also, you like my 5 Seconds of Summer shirt? Oh yes, so the new pilot, or the same pilot that didn't die, he's about to fly again for the first time since the crash. He's nervous. Before he flies, he gets infested with the fleas. Then he crashes the plane after 40 minutes. They find that the door handle for the emergency exit of the original plane crash was covered in sulfur. And this is the first time we learn that sulfur is left behind by demonic possession. I'd be like, huh, is that something I need to remember? It is, but don't worry, they'll remind you of it. They'll remind you of it every episode. So, we're dealing with a demonic possession. Are the fleas a demon? The fleas are a demon. Sam and Dean research lore on demons, and they specifically research Japanese lore on demons. Dean says that demons don't want anything but death and destruction for its own sake. That they don't have plans or goals. You might be thinking, oh, surely that's going to be consistent throughout the series, right? That the demons don't have plans or goals, and they just want to kill things. No. Well, this is the lie, Dean. This is a lie. Do you know it yet? No, but like... Like, the writers know it. The writers at this point in the show, it's not even like, oh, they're gonna change their mind like way later in the show. Like, this season. This is no longer gonna be true. And this isn't a spoiler. This is stupid. Okay? I mean, if you're watching this whole thing is spoilers, okay? But anyway. Like, lies. Like, this is such a bad lie. Anyway, but we'll go with it for now. And they're also like, why 40 minutes? They talk about biblical numerology. Biblical numerology in real life in Christian religions. Let me tell you, it's made up. Used to justify, just like, so you can make the scriptures say whatever you want, which obviously Christians are really good at doing. Soda. Biblical numerology. Thank goodness we're not going to really talk about this again. I don't think ever. The number 40 means death in biblical numerology, which is why it's choosing 40 minutes. So anyways, don't get hung up on the numbers. So the flight attendant from the first plane crash who survived is about to fly again for the first time. And Sam's like, we need to get on a plane and stop her from getting on a plane. Because clearly, you know, it said, the EVP said no survivors. Clearly it's going after all the survivors. We learn that Dean's afraid of flying. Ooh. This is actually great lore, because it answers a question of why they drive this little Chevy Impala around the country for all of these cases. Because Dean's afraid of flying. This is very important. This justifies everything going forward. It might not ever really be mentioned again, but like now we know. Now we know why do they drive instead of fly when they clearly have unlimited money, right? Because they're running all these scams. And I'd be like, it'd be a lot faster to fly all these places. They are not going to because Dean is afraid of flying. So, some more important character development in episode 4. We love. Dean says the person has to have a chink in their armor to be possessed, like be in emotional distress. This is not going to be true unless you consider every single human being ever to have chinks in their armor. But anyway, so it's kind of pointless to be like, well, they have to have emotional distress to be possessed. Bro, all the humans, especially in the supernatural world, in this series world, they're all experiencing a lot of emotional distress. So just know that that's never going to really be the case. They can possess whoever they want. So, it's a nice thought. It's a nice thought that there has to be some justification for who they possess. Know that that's not going to be the case for the rest of the show, okay? We're getting a lot of, like, factual lore about demons in this episode, which is kind of, like, a little dry. But it's important, okay? Don't check out. Don't check out. You need to know all of this stuff about demons, okay? They can check if someone's possessed by splashing holy water on them, or getting them to drink it, or whatever. Holy water, okay? It will burn them. Or they'll flinch at the name of God in Latin, which is Christo. I don't think this ever is used again, as far as I've gotten in the show. I don't think the holy water, yes. Christo, I feel like they forget about that after this episode. Maybe it'll make a comeback, but holy water is more important. So what do we know so far? Let's recap. Fleas are demons. It is a demon that looks like fleas, okay? It makes people have black eye. It makes people super strong. It can only possess people who are emotionally distressed or otherwise, weak. They leave behind sulfur. You can check if someone is possessed with holy water, it burns them, or they'll flinch at the name of God in Latin. So, they're like, we have to exorcise this demon. They get on the plane, because they can't stop the flight attendant from getting on the plane. So they buy tickets and get on the plane, and Dean's stressed out. But they're like, we need to exorcise this demon. Which, at first, is going to make the demon stronger, and then send them back to hell. This also isn't going to be consistent throughout the series. Just know they can exorcise them and send them back to hell. Kind of forget the making them stronger part. It's really just a straightforward, like, send them back to hell. Is they convince the flight attendant, they're like, you know something's up. We need to exorcise. They figure out that it's the pilot, because he flinches at the name of God in Latin. The pilot on this flight. They're like, he's possessed, we need to exorcise him. They convince her. While they're exorcising him, Sam's like reading off the Latin to exorcise the demon. The demon says, I know what happened to your girlfriend. And like for a moment, Sam just stops. Sam, get it together! And then Sam does exorcise him. Sam's like, he knows what happened. And Dean says, demons lie. 2 things can be true. Then they're talking to Jerry. They're catching up with Jerry, who we will never hear from again. Dean's like, how'd you get my number, Jerry? Jerry's like, well, I got it from John. You got it from John? You got it from John? John, who hasn't been able... Whoa, Sam. Keep it together. John, who has not communicated with his children about where he is. John, who's missing. That John. And he's like, well, I mean, it's on his voicemail. And Sam and Dean are like, bro, we've called that phone number several times, and the phone number's been out of service. But now, all of a sudden, they try it again, and there is a voicemail telling people to call Dean if they need help. So, John's alive, right? Because he left this voicemail. So, now we have confirmation that John's alive. Who really cares? Not me, but Sam and Dean do, so whatever. Yeah, at the end of this episode, I'm fine leaving Dean up there. He was fine this episode. Like, well, you know what? You didn't stand out to me, Dean. You just kind of were there. Sam needs to communicate about his feelings and his nightmares, and sleep also. But yes, this episode is important just for context about demons and demonic possession. This episode, I would give a, you didn't stand out to me. The second half of the season has more of a through line plot and is more exciting, I feel. So we just gotta get through the first little bit and it'll be great.